professional troublemaker, and this is BackstageAxxess.com, where the real show begins. So, let's begin.
I'm Dee Haley, and here I am on BackstageAxxess.com, and I'm talking with the multi-talented Henry Rollins, troublemaker, singer, songwriter, spoken word artist, actor. The list goes on for you, Henry, and you certainly do keep yourself involved in lots of interests. You're currently in the midst of your spoken word tour titled 50, commemorating your recent birthday. And by the way, happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you.
Now, you celebrated with a couple of shows in your hometown of Washington, D.C. What were some of the highlights of those shows?
The highlights were getting them done, actually. They were fairly nerve-wracking in that we shot both of them for release. No pressure there. I did the shows on no sleep, and then I'd taken a train down from New York hours before. Had a full day of travel, walking around the old neighborhood, eating cake that my best friend's younger brother's daughters had kindly made me, and then right to sound check and a backstage full of people, and then, two, 90-minute to 2-hour shows. It was just one of those very, very long days. I was kind of happy around midnight that I kind of, completed it.
Now, you did turn 50. You haven't really showed any signs of slowing down. What keeps you going?
Opportunity. I get interesting, jobs coming up, and anger and curiosity are very, very big motivators for me. The world is interesting. I want to see it. I want to go out and get into it. So I do. And these days I get all kinds of offers. Hey, you want to come all the way out here and do a show? Yeah, I'll do that. And I reckon there'll be plenty of time to sit around and, wax nostalgic. And now is the time to, really go out there and hit it. Because people like me, we have a use-by date. There comes a time where no one wants you to do anything. They say, thank you, we're moving on. And I've had an unusually long run at all of this. And it's been really interesting and challenging and fun. And so when things come my way, I don't hesitate. I go, yeah, I'll do that. And I just pile it on the stack. And at this point, I'm obligated to about a 6.5 or 7-day work week.
How do you fit it all in?
It's pretty much all I do. I'm just kind of a workaholic. I don't have a life outside of the work, really. I get up every morning, even if it's the weekend, and I work. On different projects, different deadlines. I have a weekly radio show, which I have to keep, putting together every week. I have a weekly column for the LA Weekly, and that has its own demands. I write periodically for different websites. There's no deadline there, but I feel a duty every now and then to post something. And I'm always writing. I do a small book company, and I'm always looking to, further that along. So I'm always either in writing or edit mode on all of that, and quite often I'm doing all of that while on tour. Doing a radio show from the road it's pretty challenging.
That's what I was wondering, how you do. I know you travel a lot, and you've done some extensive traveling in different parts of the world, and I was wondering how you maintain everything when you're on the road.
Pro Tools. I often take a 1 terabyte hard drive of music out on the road with me. I build the songs on the computer. I'll either rent studio time at some city, or I'll use my Pro Tools setup I have on the road, and I'll record all the voice drops for the between song, back cells and front cells and pitches to the hard drive for the PSAs and whatnot, and I'll send all that into my engineer, who makes sense of it in Pro Tools and loads it into the KCRW Daylit computer system, and on Saturday night at 6 p.m., out it comes. And last year, out of a 52-week year, I did about 40 pre-taped shows because I was touring.
That's a lot of shows to do pre-recorded.
A lot of work to do that from abroad. It's that and a show on stage that night. It makes for a pretty long day.
It sure does. Now, what are some of the topics that you're going to be focusing on your spoken word tour, which actually the national tour kicks off in March, correct?
Yeah. Well, I can't predict world events, but certainly Cairo and looking more and more like Libya will definitely be topics of concern. We will be up the road with whatever is going to shake out in Madison, Wisconsin, or whatever, it rattles loose from that and goes into places like Ohio. So that'll be nothing but interesting. Hopefully no one gets hurt. So I'll definitely talk a little bit about that. But a lot of what I talk about on stage is from places I've been to, so I can talk with an informed opinion. And so I just came back from a lot of travel that I think was very interesting, that I think the audiences might find, pretty compelling. Like so I was in North Korea, I was just in South Africa, I was in Sudan, I just was in Uganda and Tibet and Nepal, China, Mongolia, Vietnam, Bhutan. These are all some pretty interesting destinations, and there's a lot to tell.
And these aren't vacations. You do this to gain some inspiration or just knowledge on
all of it. Yeah, there's no shows. There's just me on my own with a camera bag and a backpack full of dry socks and protein bars. And I do this kind of travel by myself all over the place. Middle East, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, Africa, all over.
Now, what is your regimen, if you don't mind my asking, based on the fact you just mentioned backpacking and you're in great shape? How do you maintain that? What is your exercise regimen like?
I usually work out about 5 days a week, and at this point, the bulk of it is running on the elliptical treadmill. That'll be about the first 60 minutes. And then, weights, calisthenics, cable machines, which, there's a lot of really good ones. And restorative sleep and a basic, healthy diet. Nothing extreme. I'm not vegan. I don't really like meat, so, every once in a while fish. But past that, nothing. It's not like I'm swallowing tons of vitamins and supplements. Just, smart eating, keep the body limber and moving as much as possible and get real sleep. So I don't smoke or drink, which probably helps me, especially now.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a key to longevity.
Or at least, kind of having a body that'll still do what you need it to. Because I'm usually on deadline. There's a show, I have to be somewhat performance grade all the time.
Are you a former drinker, smoker, or it's just something you never...
No, I mean, in high school I got drunk a few times and never liked it. It was never... I never enjoyed what the part you're supposed to enjoy was not enjoyable. I smoked marijuana once, like 24 years ago. And I just sat there high, and I just hated it. It was miserable. I couldn't wait for it to be over. So that world, it just, having experience, like taking the tiniest dip into that, it was a real bummer. I mean, it held no interest for me whatsoever. So there's not like a temptation or anything. It's just, it was not for me.
Now, along with your other varied things that you've been doing, in April you get to go wild with that Snake Underworld show on National Geographic. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, we shot that in June or July of last year, so it's been in the can for quite a while. I saw the final cut last October. I do documentaries for National Geographic, and I was in my boss's office in D.C., and Jeff from Nat Geo Wild came in and said, "Wow, what are you doing here?" I said, I guess I work here now. And he goes, "Cool. Would you be afraid of snakes? Would you want to be part of a snake documentary?" And I said, "Well, actually, I've handled quite a few in my time, and I might be just the guy for the job." And so he said, "You're hired." And so I ended up, doing, the narrating and presenting of this snake show. And it's just, we interview, American, snake keepers. And it's basically like the underground world of, it's not a Cocker Spaniel. It's a 20-foot reticulated python. And we went to some interesting breeding facilities. We went to a snake show. We met, private owners. I mean, it's an interesting kind of person who, wants to keep snakes. And so we kind of, dwelled in that world for about a week all over America.
Now, you've had snakes yourself. Do you have any at this time?
No, I haven't had them for years, but I'm familiar with them and quite the fan. I mean, I think they're an amazing survival species. interesting animals for sure, and not to be feared. You should be careful around them, but chances are in the wild, if they see you coming, you'll never see them because they already left.
Now, this is the second National Geographic show that you've undertaken. What was the first one?
The first one was a study on what they call the warrior gene, which is the monoamine oxidase A gene, which is carried by about 30% of men in the world. And they say it skews for aggressive or violent behavior. And we all got tested, me and the whole film crew and all the men we interviewed, to see who had the warrior gene and who did not. And my test came back negative. I don't have it. And basically, the documentary was about the age-old discussion of nature versus nurture. And science is telling us that there might be more to nature than we had thought previously.
Now, you also have your own label, which you mentioned briefly a few moments ago, is regarding your little publishing company. You do everything under your 21361, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you started that back in the 80s. How has that evolved over the past few decades?
Well, it's bigger. There's lots of inventory. There's a staff. There's worldwide distribution. The books are in different languages. And it's, it requires an office and, someone to answer the phones and to do real business and pay real taxes. So it's a very legitimate full-time company that, is in the world. And it started as, me doing fold and staple small books. I didn't even have a typewriter, so I just kind of hand drew out all the little boards and took it to the print shop when I had enough money and, cranked them out that way. And now they're, paperbacks, they're hardbacks, they're in bookstores, and it's a bigger operation.
Now, how many people do you have working?
1 full-time and 2 part-time.
Wow, that's a lot of work for a small staff.
Yeah. I mean, and it's you can understand it's a very small company, but, everyone is, getting paid, working hard.
I know that some of your fans would love to see you rocking out again in front of a band, and is that something that you would ever consider at this point?
I would consider it, but I don't know how I could do it better or different than I've ever done it, which makes it kind of unattractive to me at this point. I'm just not all that interested in repeating. I certainly don't want to do old songs. Well, I do, but I also like to eat pizza every day and sleep in, but I can't.
Understood. You're always, though, progressing. You have a great knack for doing that and always putting sort of a fresh spin on things, which is what you mentioned you'd want to do if you got in front of a band again. What else can your fans expect from you? What kind of things do you have going on? Anything that we don't know about?
Oh, well, maybe. I have my first photo book is coming out in October. And it's a photo on the right page and an essay on the left. And so that took quite a bit of work. It's photos from 2003 to 2010 from I don't know how many countries, but it's, many different continents, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, Africa, all over, Siberia, wherever else. And all of that that book is called Occupants. And that book comes out in October of this year. And I'll be going out and doing press and some in-stores around that. And I'm working on a couple of other book projects, like 2 or 3 at the same time. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, I have these shows coming up in North America and Europe and Australia. And then I'm hoping that National Geographic has more for things for me to do. I'd like to be, gainfully employed doing a few projects with them this year. I'm kind of waiting for them to give me the green light, on different projects. So,
if you actually had a day off, what might you do with it?
Read, listen to music, and usually on the weekends if I'm off the road, I think slow down to a certain degree. Saturday is basically getting ready for the radio show. When I get off at 8 p.m., so I buy my groceries and go home, and I'm usually home by 9. And the rest of the night I'll read and listen and write. And that's part of Sunday, too, is, a lot of preparation for the week. But it's a bit more stepped down than the normal work week. I have writing obligations on Sunday and a lot of prep work to get the week ready. But it's not, the phones aren't ringing. And I rarely have a thing to do. I think this coming Sunday I've got a shoot a public service announcement all day. But I said yes to that, and so I'll go do it. But, so I do have downtime, but I use it to catch up on reading and writing and thinking. I do a lot of, just sitting, thinking out ideas for shows and for essays and for editorials. What there isn't is a whole lot of people. I mean, I don't hang out. I'm not married. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't, I live alone. I'm kind of one of those to myself kind of people.
Right. Yeah, I recently read that you were seeing someone at the radio station that you were working at. And,
I dated a gal there for a while, and while we still remain good friends, my schedule just couldn't sustain, a real adult relationship where the other person expects you to kind of be around and present and available. And I think that is nothing that one should not expect from an adult. And when I couldn't provide that, I said, hey, we're all grown up, and this is not fair. And I'm kind of not the guy for the job. And it's true. And so it took her a minute, and she went, well, okay, you're right. And we're friends, but I'm not really a good boyfriend, because if I'm on the road, I'm far away. And my mind is on the show. And when I'm here, I'm really busy. And so it's my ambition and my resolve kind of keeps me away from that aspect of life, which is a drag because I'm human.
Right.
And loneliness is considerably a factor. But then I look at give me the stable relationship, or give me like a 150 show tour. And I'll tell you which, there's no decision to be made. It's obvious I go for the tour.
Right.
And so the work has always kind of taken me away.
Well, I admire that you know yourself so well. I think that's fantastic. I very well could be older than you. I think at a certain age, I don't know when it is or if this is true, at least it's true for me, at a certain age you just kind of figure out who you are, what you like, what you do. And I'm 50, which is, doesn't mean anything, but the shows and the audience is what I'm about. These are my, these are the people I spend a lot of time thinking about. The stage is where I'd like to be. The world is where I like to live. When I'm off the road at home, it's nice. I live in a nice place, but I'd much rather be on a tour bus or in a hotel room or in an airport. And being out in the world, there's always time to stay home. So I feel like I miss out on life when I'm off the road. When I'm on the road, traveling or touring, I feel like I'm kind of doing my job and pulling my weight in the world, and I'm going at the speed of life rather than sitting still as it flies by me. I think your speed of life might be a little quicker than some other folks, and I admire you for that as well.
Thank you.
Now, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I can't think of anything.
Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us, although I could probably talk to you forever if you had the time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I'll be looking forward to the tour as well as the photo book. That sounds like it'll be something really interesting to check out.
It turned out really well. I'm really happy with it. I'm kind of excited to see what people think, because I've never done anything like this before, not remotely.
Do you want to tell everybody where they can go to get more information or to keep up with what you're doing?
HenryRollins.com does it, and I have a weekly newspaper article in the other weekly, which they can read, which I eventually post on my site after it's done as a little course, in print. All the radio show notes are there for the Saturday show, which they can stream from KSRW.com, National Public Radio for Southern California. And I do every Sunday I do a newsletter, and all of that's at the website. And so HenryRollins.com is the way to find out about me. Nothing surprising there, but that website's very well attended to. We've been back, we're always putting stuff on it. If you go to the video section, there's 5 videos of me and my assistant, we've been fighting each other for 13 years, and she started filming it. So we have some of that on the website, which people seem to very much enjoy, even though it's taking years off my life.
Well, something has to, right?
Yeah, I guess it's her. Yeah, and so all of that's there, and that's easily the best way to contact me and to see what's happening in my small world.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for taking the time to talk with us. I'm Dee Haley. We've been talking with Henry Rollins on BackstageAxxess.com.